Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, episode number 141 of Let's Go Racing. Tyler Jones, Dominic Gallagher here with you, and we got a lot to talk about on today's show. William Byron dominates at Circuit of the Americas in Austin, a big win for him, and we'll talk about what it means for the 24 team and their path going forward after they kind of struggled for a few weeks after that Daytona 500 win and become the first two-time winner of the 2024 season. We'll react to it. We'll also look ahead to this weekend's Easter Sunday extravaganza from Richmond International Raceway as NASCAR returns to Richmond under the lights again. We'll get some thoughts on that and look ahead to this weekend's race there. Also got plenty to talk about the news and notes side of things as well, with some of the headlines going on in the sport. And we'll do our mailbag segment at the end of the show as well. Dominic, you and I holding it down this week. David out, but we are trucking along here. And I got to say, before we get into the business of the day, talking about William Byron and all this, Dom, I had an incredible time at Austin at Circuit of the Americas. It has come out since the race ended that Circuit of the Americas more than likely will return to the NASCAR schedule in 2025. And I got to say, credit where credit's due. Between SMI and COTA, with what they put together with their resources, that incredible track, the product that we see on the track, and then everything around it. Austin, Texas, one of the best, just tourist destinations, one of the best cities to travel to in the country. I love what everybody has done to make this a destination weekend. This has become maybe even my favorite race on the NASCAR calendar. I love what we saw this weekend. I had another great time there in Austin this weekend, Dom.
Still one of those tracks I've never been to, and it's definitely on my short list to make it out there someday. But to see how the race played out, to see the fun that you guys had, and all the coverage that came out of this race weekend, and really cool too, Tyler, to see a race with the minimal amount of cautions for just stage breaks and natural racing play out. Had we had another lap, we might be talking about a way different outcome. But what a cool track. I love all the elevation changes you see on TV. I love the little tower. Would love to go see some stuff up there someday too. But what a cool track. Again, it's on my short list. I got to imagine it's on probably a lot of NASCAR fans' short list if they have not been there yet.
Well, when it joined the NASCAR calendar, it took one of the two races from Texas. And I know that some people were upset about that. Eddie Gossage, of course, raised a fuss and everything. And we heard some people, hey, Texas has been on the NASCAR calendar for 20 plus years with 2+ races and everything. But I think looking back, they've made the right decision. COTA has become a destination race, and you're bringing in, Dom, some of these drivers that we don't see every week that are part of this race. Even Colleague, credit to them. I know that they've had a rough go at it the last year and a half, but to take the extra step to be, hey, we're going to get a car and we're going to get AJ Allmendinger in a car, along with some of the others that have participated in this race over the years. I think we were talking about last week about Jordan Taylor getting to fill in for Chase Elliott last year, and Kobayashi, of course, ran this week as well. Like I think that this race is turning into a smashing success for NASCAR. I think they got to be proud of what they've done. Credit to everybody, SMI, COTA, NASCAR for what we've seen here the last few years now.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Again, great racing that we saw on the racetrack this week, and a lot of spins there in turn one. You watch that turn one, Tyler. I can only imagine what that's like in person, because they really, really amp it up with the coverage, and they show the aerial shots and how it's that acute angle as you go off of one and you have cars barreling off 3, 4, or 5 wide.
That's a hard turn.
Absolutely. And I know that restart zone got moved this year, so you didn't see as much of the calamity as we have seen in years past. But nonetheless, what a cool corner. Just one of the many things, multifaceted racetrack. And Tyler, I think we'd be remiss too, talking about some of these names that hadn't returned and some of these names you don't see week to week. Our buddy Carl Long, NBA Motorsports, making that return for the first time in 2 years. And I know you had a little bit of behind the scenes there. Tell us about what you got to experience this weekend with the Amtricity and COTA and all that.
So Timmy Hill ran that car, the 66 with Amtricity on the hood. And I want to shout out Electricity for a second here. They've gone all out. I love their story. This battery company that's powering homes now, where they're letting you making homes energy independent, where you don't have to rely on an electric company. And on Saturday night, they hosted this big party for us, kind of their launching event, if you will. And David was there, friend of the show, Matt Jennings was there, and several others, Carl Long, and I was so impressed with that product. And David and Matt were a big part of getting that deal done. And as a result, David's going to run the Coke 600. It's kind of a trade-off deal of sorts between Carl and David to make that happen. But Amtricity, great product. They're based right here in the great state of Texas. And this was kind of their moment to show what they were all about. And Dom, on top of going to this party and everything, I got to walk the red carpet. It didn't get to my head. Don't get me wrong, but I'll say this: it's always a good day when somebody can ask you to stop and pose and take some photos on the red carpet. So I did enjoy myself a little bit this weekend, Dom.
Hey, that's what it's all about. And I'm sure too. I mean, I can't speak for David, but you were definitely around him this weekend. And I look forward to him sharing that with everybody next week when he is back on the show. But he's run the Coke 600 twice. And you bring that up, he'll be running that race in May. I mean, how excited was he hearing that? Like, did he share like his reaction, his thoughts? Because he has said it on the show before that is one of the coolest weekends in racing in the entire year. And he would always wake up early to watch all the races. And now he's going to be a part of that last race of that Triple Crown, because you have Monaco, you have the Indianapolis 500, and then the Coca-Cola 600 to finish off the day. And he will be competing it for the third time.
Yeah, certainly excited for David, and he's fired up about it. And Carl putting everything together here. They got a lot of good going for them right now. And this past week was an accomplishment for that small team, one of the smallest teams in all of NASCAR, just to finish the race and bring that thing home in one piece. Timmy Hill did a really good job, all things considered. Was very happy for Timmy, and David, well, it was happy for him as well. And to get this chance to run the Coca-Cola 600, I can't speak for David, but I can tell you he's pretty fired up. And just to be a part of that day in some way, shape, or form, Dom, the storyline for that weekend, I think really in all of motorsports, all eyes are going to be on Kyle Larson running the doubleheader. We haven't seen somebody run the double in quite some time, I think since Kurt Busch, to be exact.
Last one.
And, to have David be a part of the prime time race, the Coke 600 there in what should be a great day. I think people are a little more intrigued on the F1 side after Max Verstappen finally didn't win a race this past weekend when his car blew up on the third lap. So you might have some more eyeballs on F1 now that win streak has ended. With that going on, Monaco is such a great event in itself, and the Indy 500 and the Coke 600, like that'll be here. We're still a couple months away from that race, but that race weekend, but I think we're already amped up and can't wait for that weekend to get here, because all three races have some intrigue in different ways, shape, and form.
Absolutely. I think you and me and our listeners, our viewers, we're all going to have a little more investment too with David running that race. And just to tie it all up there too, we've heard David say it over the last few years that he has just been itching to get behind the wheel of a next gen vehicle, and now he's going to get that chance. So I'm looking forward to hearing how that whole experience goes. No matter where he was going to get that first start in a next gen car, there's going to be a lot of excitement around him and his camp and everybody involved. But to do it on the Coke 600, like you said, to be a part of one of NASCAR's biggest races, man, certainly a dream come true too.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Dom, let's start with William Byron, his win at COTA. He didn't win either one of the stages, stage one or stage two, but he led the most laps and by a lot. And if you guys were watching our coverage that we had on social media on Facebook and X and all that, when David and I were recapping the race, David beat me to the punch. I was literally about to get these words out of my mouth, and he said it before I did. So we were simpatico on this. He said, look, William Byron, he's the championship favorite. He is the guy to beat. They won the most races last year, and David also brought up this point, also beat me to the punch on this as well, that they are capable of winning anywhere. Daytona, COTA, we know he can win short tracks and mile and a halves. That 24 team, it's not just William Byron, too. And William Byron does deserve a lot of credit, don't get me wrong. But Rudy Fugle has done a really good job as the crew chief there. I mean, they had a great strategy throughout the day. I know that Christopher Bell made an interesting, late in that race, had a chance to, pass William Byron, had that race gone another lap or so. But credit where credit's due. That 24 team has got it figured out right now, and they were very impressive on Sunday, Dom.
Well, they've picked up where they left off from last year. And yeah, I think you and I both picked William Byron as our preseason championship picks for a reason. Like you said, that 24 team is hot. They're on fire. This is William Byron's team now. This is no longer the Jeff Gordon 24 car. This is the William Byron era. 12 wins now in Cup and counting. That's hard to believe too, Tyler, that he's only won 12 races at NASCAR's top level, and this is his 7th full-time year. Crazy how time flies, but that team is just firing off. The hiring of Rudy Fugle as his crew chief several years back after Knaus retired, a great call, because those two were an instant success made in heaven with what they did in trucks with Kyle Busch Motorsports. So they are firing on all cylinders right now. William Byron, there's no question too, Tyler, that this guy could go out and win 5, 6 races this year. And by the way, too, I gotta give a shout out to Joey Strigley. I think I'm saying his name wrong, but he was the one that pointed out on social media that William Byron is the first driver in this next gen era to hit double-digit victories in this car. And you look at the prior generations of NASCAR teams, the last 2 generations, the car of tomorrow, and then the Gen 6 vehicle, Jimmy Johnson, a fellow Hendrick Motorsports driver at the time, also was the first to hit the double-digit win mark in that vehicle. So no surprise it's come from Hendrick Motorsports and how fast and how great and dominant they have been over the last 20 years, 20 plus years. But William Byron, 24 team, they're just getting started, Tyler.
24 ever, right? Yeah.
24 ever. The 24 and 24. Isn't that their social media campaign?
If it's not, it should be 24 and 24. But yeah, William Byron's just on fire. That team's clicking on all cylinders, no pun intended. I really like what they're doing. And, I know Bowman had a nice run, finished 4th. I think it's the 2nd straight week he's finished 4th. But, Dom, there's still a disconnect, I think, in that Hendrick camp. You have William Byron capable of winning any given week. Kyle Larson, same thing. He's got a playoff spot already locked up. He dominated Vegas. But here we are. If you were reading the Racing Experts race recap this week, then you would have seen the numbers that showed, William Byron is only 1 win behind Tim Richmond on the all-time wins list now. I mean, that's some pretty good company already that William Byron's been a part of. But then even taking that a step further, Dom, you look at these last 2 seasons, William Byron and Kyle Larson have combined for 13 wins, okay? Comparably speaking to their teammates, Alex Bowman and Chase Elliott, full disclosure, though, just to be clear, they did miss a lot of races, both of them did last year, for various reasons, have not been in victory lane. Not either one of them have not been in victory lane since 2022. Like, to me, Dom, I get it. It is tough to have 4 successful cars in one operation. That's tough. But even with that said, this is Hendrick Motorsports. This isn't Rick Ware Racing here, people. I don't understand why we can see William Byron and Kyle Larson running so well, and then Alex Bowman and Chase Elliott can't get back into victory lane, and they're sitting here wondering if they're even going to make the playoff. Those 2 drivers are. And not to mention, even taking that a step further, Tom, of that situation here, like, we've seen Chase Elliott win a championship. We've seen Alex Bowman win 4 races in a season. I know those guys are capable, that those guys got talent, but there is a disconnect in that Hendrick organization from the 5 and 24 to the 48 and the 9. That's just mind-boggling.
You're not wrong, man. And they're all capable of winning. We know these are championship caliber drivers. Chase Elliott, too, Tyler, to even add on to that, one top 10 finish in the last 9 races when you go back to last year. And yes, he's picked up stage points. He's run exceptionally well on some of these tracks, but it's not the Chase Elliott we're used to seeing. The Chase Elliott now, most drivers, and I've said this before, most drivers would love to have the season that Chase Elliott's having right now. I think he's ninth in points, one top 10 finish, he's collected a lot of stage points. But that's not the season Chase Elliott wants to be having. He knows how good of a competitor he is. He knows the equipment he's in. Now, Alex Bowman, I'll give credit where credit's due. I didn't think he was going to be that good this year. I think on a preseason sheet, I'd feel that he might get 3 top 5 finishes this year. I'm eating those words. He's had 3 top 5 finishes in the first 6 races. At least the 48 team is finishing the races where it counts. But this 9 team has the theme, Tyler, of just collecting the stage points and fading on these long runs in these races and finishing mid-teens. I'm not used to seeing Chase Elliott run like this. He didn't even run like this as a rookie in his rookie season where he was consistently top 10.
Well, and remember, too, when we would go to road courses like COTA and Chase Elliott was the clear and obvious favorite. He even got to a point, I remember interviewing him a couple of years ago on my old radio show back when I was in Lawrence. I said, you're the guy on road courses. And he almost got annoyed by that. He's like, I don't want to be thought of as just the great road course guy. I want to be thought of as an all-around good racer here. And this is a race that team should have shined. This should have been their moment to at least run up front, and that 9 car was nowhere to be seen.
And it's not like we can say, oh, a caution mired him back. No, this race was straight up speed. When you take out those stages, and yeah, there was a penalty too. I think Chase was running 5th or 6th and cut the course and had to serve a drive-through. But even at that, the raw speed, the 9 car was not able to get back to where he was running. And again, these races where we're seeing real speed come out, we're very likely, and we'll get into this later when we talk about Richmond. Richmond, you tend to see long green flag runs. What will the 9 team do on this short track? We saw Josh Berry finish 2nd in this car last year when he filled in. Let's see. But Tyler, I'm not liking what I see out of that 9 team right now.
No, I think, Dom, there's a standard at Hendrick, right? As Mike Tomlin would say, the standard is the standard. I think eventually, if the 48 and the 9 don't get to victory lane soon, they got to start thinking about crew chief changes or something. Like maybe it's a swap. Blake Harris goes to one side and Alan Gustafson goes to the other, or maybe they call up somebody else, whatever. But I mean, this is not the Hendrick Motorsports. That side of the operation is not what we're accustomed to seeing, and they cannot be happy right now. And I know that we heard Alex Bowman say, I think it was in the last week or so, he was asked about his future, and he said, hey, I'm not worried about it. Rick Hendrick wants me here, and Jeff Gordon wants me here, Ally wants me here. We're all on the same page. They may like you. You may all be on the same page, but if you're not getting wins at Hendrick Motorsports, then eventually enough is going to be enough. Like, change has got to be coming in some way, shape, or form if either one of these teams don't get back to victory lane soon.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It doesn't matter if you're a likable guy. You got to produce on the racetrack. And Hendrick Motorsports is going to want nothing short of wins and competing for championships. They've been doing that since day one, dating back to the 80s. So this is not up to the standard that Rick Hendrick would like. And I'm sure, of course, they're going to say things publicly that's going to differ from what they go behind closed doors. And we can only imagine. We'd love to be flies on the wall in those competition meetings on Mondays and Tuesdays, but got to imagine there's some panic.
One thing I do want to bring up along these lines here. I know that part of the allure of the next gen car was to bring parity to this sport, and certainly done that. I would say that it's accomplished its number one goal, number one mission, and we've seen for the most part, the next gen car has passed the smell test and been a very good vehicle for NASCAR the last few years. But now I think, Dom, we're starting to see the cream rise to the top a little bit more of Hendrick and Gibbs kind of separating themselves here. I mean, we've talked about William Byron getting 2 wins, Kyle Larson already in victory lane this year. Those guys running up front as much as they have. Gibbs, we've seen Denny Hamlin win this year. We've seen Christopher Bell win this year. Christopher Bell almost won this past week. We mentioned Ty Gibbs is running really well. Martin Truex isn't doing too bad either. This feels like early indications to me, Dom. I don't know how you're feeling. I feel like we're setting up for the rest of this season to be a showdown between Hendrick Motorsports and Joe Gibbs, and then everyone else is a step below that.
Yeah, I would actually have to agree with that. And you look at how well Gibbs has run collectively too. Ty Gibbs has been very, very impressive. And we said it on this show that he would have a breakout year. He's going to win a race this year. I didn't think he'd be this good, though, this early on. 3 top fives in the
He
first.
might even win this weekend at Richmond.
He could. I picked him on the show to win COTA, and he came pretty darn close to that third place finish, but he's leading laps. He's collecting stage points. He's 5 points out of the point lead. Oh, yeah. Who's leading points? Martin Truex Jr., his Joe Gibbs Racing teammate. And that's fascinating itself, too. You bring up the parity of the next gen vehicle. We have seen 5 different drivers lead points this year, and no driver has led back-to-back weeks. So Truex is our 5th different points leader this season so far. That 19 team is looking great. Denny Hamlin, we know he's not the best road course racer. 1 road course win in his 20 years in the Cup Series, or 18 years in his Cup Series career. We know we're not going to see the 11 that much up front at a road course, but you go to Richmond, Christopher Bell, Denny Hamlin, we know what those guys are capable on the short tracks. Martin Truex Jr., Tyler, maybe Gibbs 1, 2, 3, 4, or 4 cars in the top 6 this weekend could not be out of the realm of possibility.
I feel like, Dom, that when you compare the two, Hendrick has the better 1-2 punch with Byron and Larson, but Gibbs definitely has the better complete team. I think that's the edge they have compared to the Hendrick camp right now.
Big time. Because you have all of your guys solidly inside the playoffs right now. You have Truex as the point leader. Hamlin has already won a race. Bell's won a race. Ty Gibbs, the weak link, if you want to even call him that, he's second in points. I don't know if there's a weak link right now, Gibbs. We've always talked about this 4th Hendrick car struggling. I feel like we really haven't had those talks with Joe Gibbs Racing because it's always a solid, well-rounded organization.
Right. I mean, we saw like Eric Jones maybe get 1 win or be outside the playoff, but he wasn't bad. Christopher Bell, he came into his own. Like, it is fascinating. Like, Gibbs is looking like a better organization as a whole right now, but I'd give Hendrick the more likely title chance with their two, with Byron and Larson. I think that's kind of the difference there. But pretty fascinating stuff. Great race this weekend at COTA with William Byron getting it done there on that front. Dom, let's look ahead to Richmond this weekend, the Easter extravaganza there at Richmond Raceway, and back to the short tracks. Much different than what we saw this past week at COTA. What's kind of your expectations for Richmond?
Well, I think Richmond always provides good racing, and when the weather holds off, we get some great night racing and some great action on that. And we're going to get that primetime Easter race, and that's fascinating too, Tyler, because you're going to have Elite 8 games, I believe, earlier in the day, but it's not really going to be a conflict. So there's going to be some really good opportunity for some good sports this weekend between basketball and auto racing, and that's the other fascinating thing too. We have a NASCAR race on Easter, and you don't really see that a lot. When you look back at the NASCAR schedule and the history of the sport, racing on Easter has only been a recent thing, or at least a more consistent recent thing. Because this will be the 4th consecutive year that you have a NASCAR race on Easter. But I'm sorry, a third consecutive year. But you actually go back through the history of the sport, it's happened 14 times. And they ran the Bristol Dirt Race a couple of times. And before that, 1989 was the most recent time. And they only did that at Richmond Raceway because there was some snow in the forecast. They had to move Richmond to what was originally an off weekend, being Easter. And even before that, 1970. So very fascinating. I know NASCAR is trying to start a new tradition and keep this going with racing on Easter. Personally, not a fan of racing on Easter. I think it's a great traditional weekend off, and I'm sure the teams would appreciate that off. But at the same time, I get what NASCAR's trying to do. They're going out of the box, and they're trying to capitalize on something here.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised next year, since we don't have the Olympic break next year, if Easter goes back to being an off week in 2025. But with the Olympic break, they really couldn't take off this year. They had to race that Easter date. But yeah, I mean, being the nighttime event, college basketball we mentioned earlier in the day, like there's a chance, Dom, like all these different sports like have a holiday they kind of own, right? The NFL, Thanksgiving, the NBA, Christmas, New Year's Day, college football bowl games. There's a chance like NASCAR could own Easter essentially going forward. I know that some years you have the Masters fall on Easter, but that's every once in a while. Obviously, Easter changes every year, but this could be a new tradition where the sports world or NASCAR, this is their day, their time to shine of sorts.
And it's not a one-time thing. Like I said, this is the third time we've seen it 3 years in a row. And I believe they were trying for it in 21. Rain pushed the race back to Monday. So that didn't get to happen then. But no, nonetheless, I think NASCAR is onto something here. I'm putting my personal preferences aside from a business standpoint. It makes a lot of sense. If you want your sports aligned with a certain holiday, like you said, you have different things like football on Thanksgiving, basketball on Christmas, racing on Easter.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe so. This might be a new tradition as far as that goes. Richmond, Dom, the first name that comes to my head when I think Richmond Raceway is the hometown guy that has run so well there, and he might even be the favorite this weekend, is Denny Hamlin. I think it starts with Denny Hamlin. I think you have your usual suspects, your William Byrons, your Kyle Larsons of the world, Martin Truex, all that. To me, that's kind of who I'm looking at. That comes to mind, potentially speaking. Denny, though, is the first one. Who comes to mind you think that'll have a good weekend here?
No, I do too. I think Denny Hamlin and Joe Gibbs Racing as a whole, if we're going a team, but individually, Denny Hamlin, undisputed Richmond King as of late and has run so well there. And we'll get into the odds later, but him and Christopher Bell towards the top of that list. And you look at the Joe Gibbs Racing guys, you're going to be surprised at some of these odds, at how the odds are stacked this weekend at opening odds for the Toyota Owners 400. But Denny Hamlin's got to be the guy, I would think, right now, before qualifying, before practice, before a lap has been turned on the track this weekend. Got to be picking that 11 team.
There's been a lot of talk about the short track package. That's been a point of controversy, if you will. We'll see it here again at Richmond. I know a lot of these guys are wanting more horsepower and everything. What's kind of your confidence level? What the type of you think we'll see a good race, if you will? Will the short track package, and we're going to see it for the next couple of weeks. And you got Martinsville coming up too. It's certainly going to be put to the test here. Go through the ringer, if you will, this short track package.
Yes, you have a little higher of a spoiler going from 2 inches to 3 inches, so it should create some more of that rear downforce, like David has said here on the show. But I would have said maybe Phoenix would be a good baseline to test. But you really can't go off that, Tyler. That was a day race, and we're going to be running this race at night. And in theory, the temperatures are going to cool off. Grip could lay more into the racetrack, so potentially some good racing, more grip, maybe some more good on-track battles. But it's hard to say. So I'm going to go in with an open mind this weekend. Let's say you, Tyler. What are you thinking about this weekend?
Yeah, I don't know. I know that's not a great answer.
No, I'm with you.
I really just don't know. I could see this being a great race. I could see this being kind of boring. It's the great unknown here. I do think you bring up a good point with this being a night race. This will be a little bit different than Phoenix, but I'm just uncertain. Like, I feel like, some of these tracks, like I can circle Dom, Atlanta, Daytona, Talladega, Watkins Glen. Some of these tracks I know going in right before we even drop the green flag, it's going to be a good race. I can't say that about these short tracks with these short track packages right now. That could change, but at the moment, I just can't say for certain that it's going to be the show people are wanting to see.
Well, we know qualifying is always important, but with such uncertainty too, you got to imagine, qualifying is going to be even more important this weekend with that big question mark. I would think teams were thinking optimistic and cautiously optimistic at the very least, but the only way to ensure yourself a start and a shot to have a great chance at winning this weekend, you got to get a good roll off in qualifying. You get a better pit stall selection. You're setting yourself already off better for the race weekend. We're not going to know till that first green flag run happens on Sunday night.
Yeah. Let's shift gears, get to our news and notes. Dom, a lot to talk about. We're going to kind of go through these real quickly, a little rapid fire, because there is so much going on. Dom, where do we want to start?
We're going to start with a report out of racer.com talking about NASCAR, a new venue, Southern California. Wait, we've been down this road before, but not down the streets of Long Beach, that is, Tyler. It looks like Racer was reporting March 26th. They were the first to report that NASCAR is considering potentially purchasing a 50% stake in the Long Beach race. So a little bit of context here per racer.com. So this has been a staple on the schedule for IndyCar since 1984. And it's
their biggest race outside of the Indy 500.
I would agree with that. And real estate investor, late businessman Kevin Kalkoven, I think I'm saying that name right, had the 50% ownership stake in the race. and it's up for sale now. Now, NASCAR declined to comment for this story, but it makes my gears just turn in my head, Tyler. What could NASCAR possibly want to do with something like this? Because there could be so many directions. We were talking before we came on air. There could be so many things that NASCAR could do, collaborations with IndyCar, potentially a points race. Maybe the clash becomes this race. Maybe they run twice. What do you see realistically happening if this is on the table, this goes through, and this purchase happens? Where does this fall for 25?
So this is a very interesting development here, Dom, because what we've seen since Roger Penske purchased IndyCar is more cohesion than ever before between NASCAR and IndyCar. And you look at the second half of the season too, there's a whole lot less races where IndyCar and NASCAR are running at the same time because they share the same TV outlet with NBC there. So they've been kind of working together a little bit more on that end. And NASCAR, I think part of the reason why they're going back to Iowa or going there for the first time in Cup is because of the success IndyCar has had at Iowa. So I think what we saw a couple years ago that people loved when the Indy road course was used for a doubleheader weekend a couple different times between NASCAR and IndyCar, in the excitement there. And Roger has been pushing for potentially some more doubleheader weekends of NASCAR and IndyCar working together. So Roger is open to this. I think, NASCAR's one thing, Dom, is that they want to be the marquee event. Like, I can't imagine that if they go to Long Beach, NASCAR is running on Saturday and IndyCar is running on Sunday. Like, they got to be the lead event. I could very well see a world where they work with Roger Penske and we see a doubleheader of sorts at Long Beach where they just take over that weekend, where they have IndyCar on Saturday and Cup on Sunday. Maybe you find a way to mix in an Xfinity or an IMSA race. Remember, Chicago last year was supposed to be IMSA and Cup, but that got changed to Xfinity and Cup for whatever reason. That wasn't really known. But yeah, I think that would be a great idea. I think it'd be great to promote both series. You can maximize attendance, get a lot of crossover between NASCAR fans and IndyCar fans going to both, and just be kind of the center of the racing universe in one weekend to have two major series right there. I'd be all for it. And Long Beach has been so successful. Like that was the other thing about Chicago, Dom. Like, we talked in the lead up that there was such a mess in getting that race ready, and then also the events that unfolded with the rain and everything. The promoters and all that at Long Beach, they've been there and done that. They know how to do this. And we did see the next-gen car was very successful on a street course. That was a big question mark heading into Chicago last year. So I think there's smart people involved on both ends. I would guess if this goes through, if NASCAR makes this purchase, that we probably see some type of doubleheader weekend early in the season for both series here.
Well, and you touched on this too before we came on air, and I think it's worth bringing up. This happens. Let's say we have this marquee doubleheader event. However this looks, the greater big picture thing on this too, NASCAR loves the West Coast swing, giving the West Coast fans an opportunity to kind of go on tour and go to these different tracks back to back to back weekends. And this would certainly provide that opportunity for that to happen. March is a great time. As you know, Las Vegas, great weather. Phoenix tends to be great weather in March. Long Beach around that same time. Who's not to say the West Coast swing that we're missing out on right now would be able to return in this fashion.
Yeah, and then what I wonder what it means for Auto Club, because we've heard the rumblings. They're making that a short track, but some people think we may never even return to Auto Club potentially. But the West Coast, we know, is an important market, Dom. It seems like that the Clash probably isn't going to return to the Coliseum. There's no way that in 2025 NASCAR doesn't run the Los Angeles market in some way, shape, or form. If they go back to Clash there one more time, if they go to Long Beach, I don't know what the status is on getting Auto Club ready or something like that, but in some way, shape, or form, NASCAR cannot not be in the Los Angeles market for a race next year.
They can't afford it. You're looking at the second biggest market in the entire nation, and you have a lot of fans there. You want to serve those fans, and Ben Kennedy has been very big on saying that, a big proponent on making sure that they serve the Southern California fan base of NASCAR. It's a big, huge market for NASCAR and television and all together. So you got to imagine there's a plan in place here. If this Long Beach race were not to work out, we're going to see another rendition at the Coliseum or something in Southern California. There's no way NASCAR leaves that market.
Yeah. You could argue outside of Charlotte, it might be NASCAR's most important market, potentially speaking. So, yeah, I think some way, shape, or form. I am intrigued with Long Beach. I've been saying for a long time they need a race at Long Beach. And I would also add this too, real quick, Tom. IndyCar runs multiple street races a year. F1 runs multiple street races a year. I don't think this puts the Chicago street race in jeopardy. I think you can have multiple street races on the NASCAR schedule.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think we saw how successful Chicago was last year. And despite all the uncertainty, it can work. Rains against you, it can still work. Great racing product. You're not going to know unless you throw something at it.
Yeah. Dom, what else we got?
We got a few more headlines, so we can rapid fire through here before we get to the next segment. But some of the headlines too, Tyler, before we get to our pick'ems, we're talking about markets and revisiting places. North Wilkesboro coming to mind, and actually the track announcing some track news here, and not necessarily coming out from a report from a paper or an outlet, but Speedway Motorsports saying that they have unearthed some moonshine in a cave at North Wilkesboro Speedway on property. So more context on this. Sounds like as the crews have been trying to renovate this place for the All-Star race and getting it ready in the next couple of months, that one of the sections, crews began to remove and inspect the extent of damage and evaluate a need for repairs. And during the process, they found an open area of about 700 square feet, discovered and unearthed aging concrete. So when they started looking at this, they're finding walls, and they often hear stories about old moonshine and how this operation happened. And they're finding a small cave with an interior wall, and it would have been a perfect location not only to make illegal liquor, but to be able to hide it from the law as well. So it's so well hidden that it has not been uncovered till now. So I'm curious to see what will also come out of this. But one of those fascinating stories, kind of throwing it back to yesteryear in NASCAR's roots.
When they ran the All-Star race in North last year, Dom, I know that you and I weren't there, but just watching afar from TV, it looked like they had taken a time machine back to the 80s, with, the original surface still there, and the concession stands the way that they were, and just all that was with it. And this only adds to the mystique, the nostalgia, if you will. Like, I think, we've had this throwback weekend at Darlington all these years. I feel like the real throwback is North Wilkesboro now. Like, this just only adds to that nostalgia, if you will, of North Wilkesboro. I think that's fascinating. Of course, there would be moonshine there, right?
Yes. Maybe the only other place would be Martinsville or Rockingham. Well, we need Rockingham back on the schedule. That's a conversation for another day. But certainly, if it's going to be a place where you uncover moonshine, some sort of operation, I'm not shocked it's North Wilkesboro.
Would you drink that moonshine that had been sitting there?
No, I'm good, but I'll watch you drink. You can tell me how it was.
Okay. I'm not so sure about that, and I do like me some moonshine, but I don't know if I want to touch that. I don't know where. I literally don't know where it's been. So yeah,
exactly. Not worth it. Not worth it.
What else we got?
So before we move on to our odds, Adam Stern, the Sports Business Journal, friend of the show, Stern, Bowman, coming, Tyler. NASCAR teams unsure of need for budget cap amid charter negotiations. So Adam Stern reporting with the Sports Business Journal this week. So teams spend $20 million has been about the standard or the benchmark that you might need to push for with running a Cup Series team and try to be competitive every year. But would that be a good thing? Is a budget cap something that is needed? We know it's something that we have in other sports, and NASCAR has even said two teams do need some more money. They've explored the idea of possibly having some sort of budget cap down the road. How serious that is remains to be seen, but one of those, let's see how this plays out, because we know we're in a contract negotiation kind of year. NASCAR has thrown at the table too. Hey, we're willing to give you guys more money on these charter deals with the TV side of stuff. But Tyler, the more this drags out, and the closer we get to 2025, we're still a ways away. You got to be thinking there's probably a lot of sweating bullets on both sides. There's probably a lot of fear going on right now. There's a lot of uncertainty. And I got to imagine what those conversations are going like behind closed doors. budget cap certainly being maybe discussed and a possibility. But Tyler, let me flip this on you. You've worked all these different media roles. You know how a lot of the stuff works with contracts and negotiations. Who's more scared right now? And who has more leverage in a situation like this at this point in time?
I think the teams do, because it's a different time than it was when the drivers went on strike in '69 and they just found other drivers to drive the cars. Um, that wouldn't work today. Fans are smart, right? They are not going to be happy if the teams went on strike and they threw Xfinity cars out there and tried to call it a cup race. That's not going to fly. Fans aren't going to buy that. NASCAR knows they need these teams and they need these drivers, and they're going to have to compromise of some sorts. I expect the teams to get a big raise. The split right now is like about 75-25. I know the charter teams are kind of pushing. They want something closer to what the NBA has, around 50-50. I don't know if they're going to get it, but I do think they're going to get an increase. The spending cap, Dom, it's a good idea in theory, okay, for an even playing field and parity and all that. The next-gen car was supposed to be this big money saver, and it quite frankly hasn't. It's actually cost significantly more money than the old car has. But even with that said, here's my issue with the spending cap idea, Dom, is if you go to a spending cap, that means jobs are lost. That means that these teams have to cut employees. If they could find a way to shave off some money and save on technology, or make parts cheaper or something like that, then okay, I can live with that. But my fear, as I'm looking out for the common man and the everyday man, like these guys that work for the NASCAR teams, I don't want jobs to be lost. And that's my fear with the spending cap, is that it's downsizing and these guys are unemployed and don't have work. That is my fear with that.
Absolutely. You've heard Hendrick Motorsports saying that they've even explored other options. They're doing more stuff hands-on with Chevrolet themselves so that way they can keep some of these guys on payroll and justify that. But Tyler, look, I have no skin in the game. I'm not invested in any team. And as an outsider, just purely speculating.
But we care about the people, though. We are invested in
We care
people.
about the people. With that being said, nobody told these teams, and I'm just playing devil's advocate. Nobody has told these teams over the years, NASCAR didn't say you need to come in and hire 20 engineers or 20 different people. The teams got to hold them a little accountable here, Tyler. There's a little bit of overspending that has happened over the years, and it's not been an overnight thing. It's been years in the making. But when you hear of a team like Penske and Hendrick having, what, 200, 300, 400 employees, yes, that's where a lot of the money is being spent. And I'm with you. I don't want to see anybody lose their jobs, but you got to imagine, too, they say speed costs money. How fast do you want to go? These teams clearly want to go fast. They're going to win it whatever it takes, but perhaps some of the spending along the way has gotten a little out of control.
But at the same time, Dom, like, these teams have had to spend to keep up with each other. Because if Hendrick Motorsports tomorrow says we got to cut budget and we can't spend like we used to, you know what happens? They're not winning. They're getting beat by Joe Gibbs and Penske, and someone else will spend the money. So that's where, you say like, hey, the teams have spent too much, whatever. They've been doing that just to be able to compete. I mean, I heard Jeff Gordon say in the Dale Jr. download just a few weeks ago, Hendrick Motorsports hasn't turned a profit in 10 years. So I think there's got to be a happy medium. Like, yes, the teams deserve more money.
Yes.
And should get more of the cut of the pie. But like, as far as spending cap goes, it's up to the teams and NASCAR both. They got to be able to cut budget when it comes to technology. You can't be losing jobs, but the sport does need to be more affordable just so these teams can survive.
There has to be a balance. You're right. Absolutely. I'm with you. Nobody needs to lose their job over this. There needs to be some sort of happy medium, some sort of way where the teams come to the table, NASCAR comes to the table. Maybe they don't get that 50%, but would a 33-67 deal be more realistic, or even like a 35-65, somewhere where that meets in the middle between that 50 and 25? Teams feel like they win. NASCAR feels like they win too. Maybe that's the happy medium.
And why does NASCAR need so much of that when they own over half the tracks? That's what I wonder of, we know what the teams are spending. but we don't know how much NASCAR is spending and how much they're pocketing of their money and all this. That's where I have big questions on this. Is just we know the teams need more cash. Why does we haven't heard from NASCAR why they feel they need 75% of the budget? I need an answer from NASCAR, quite frankly, Dom.
And I think that's a fair question. I certainly do. I think follow the money. Where's it going? What's happening with that? And I would say again, pure speculation, outside looking in, I would imagine it'd be like just any kind of other business venture. In this case, NASCAR, they're the ones that have put up all the risk. They've bought all the land. They've developed all these areas to become a racetrack. They've put up a lot of the risk. The teams, yes, they are their own businesses too, and they've put up risk, but on a smaller scale. That would be my argument. Is it right? Is it wrong? That's not for me to say, but it'd be the same as perhaps maybe a business owner taking on all the risks, starting up a small mom and pop business and still trying to pay their employees. You still want to be fair, but also the business owner is taking on a lot of risk. NASCAR's taking on a lot of the risk, maybe not with being on the racetrack, but with all the stuff behind the scenes that we don't know about.
Yeah. And I'm not ruling out a strike because we see these team owners, they got their heels in on this one. They are not backing down.
No.
Um,
And they don't want to lose their people, Tyler. Well, we've talked about it. We don't want to see people lose their jobs. The teams sure as hell don't want to see people get fired or laid off, I should say. They don't want to lay off anyone. Nobody's job should have to go away.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we'll see how it plays out. What are the odds looking like?
The odds for this weekend, we were talking about it a few minutes ago. Are we shocked? At least I'm not. Joe Gibbs Racing topping all four spots with Denny Hamlin, Christopher Bell, Martin Truex Jr., and Ty Gibbs on your opening odds for the Toyota Owners 400. Hamlin and Bell sitting at about 4-1. Martin Truex Jr. at 6-1. Ty Gibbs about 9-1. Kyle Larson and William Byron would be the next there, rounding out the top six, 9-1 and 11-1 respectively. Chris Buescher, who won the Richmond race in the fall, sitting at 11-1. Keselowski, a past Richmond winner. When's he going to get a win, by the way? He's 13-1. Ryan Blaney, defending champion at 15-1. Kyle Busch, the most wins among active competition at 6 wins. He is sitting at 15-1 entering this race weekend. Chase Elliott, 17-1. And some of your long shot odds include Chase Briscoe at 65-1. Noah Gragson at 90-1. Same for Michael McDowell, 90-1.
I'm all in. I said it earlier in the show that Denny's the favorite this week. I feel like I'd be silly not to pick Denny at Richmond. And the way he's racing, Joe Gibbs is clicking, like that's got to be my pick. I'm going with Denny Hamlin. Who do you got now?
I'm copying you, Tyler. I think Denny Hamlin gets it done, and he is our second repeat winner of the 2024 season.
There you have it. Denny Hamlin, our picks there. Our final segment is our mailbag segment where we ask you to submit questions to us on Facebook, facebook.com/Starr Podcast, X @Starr Podcast, by email, davidstarrpodcast@gmail.com. With just the two of us here, Dominic and I have known each other for 10 plus years, but we're always finding out new things about each other. So, Dom, I'll let you start. Throw a question my way, and then I'll throw one back at you here.
Yeah, let's do a couple of these. So you hear this a lot, and you ask this to 30 different people. You're going to get 30 different answers. I want a 31st answer from this 31st person. Now, I haven't asked that to many people, but to you, Tyler, what is success? How do you define the word success?
You know, I look at success, and for me, it's not defined by money or prestige. I think it's defined by finding what you want. I would look at, I think, are you happy? Are you doing what you want to do? Do you have what you want to have? You could, I would say, Dom, like you could be worth millions of dollars, but if you don't have what you want, like a family that cares about you, or, those type of things, how successful is that really? I think it's having what you want. And some people want different things. Some people don't want kids. Some people don't want to be rich. Some people, their dream job isn't, the most wealthy job, but it's where they're happy and where they want to be. That's what I would define success, is doing what you doing and having what you want to the extent of what your goals were of that. That's how I would define success. What do you think about that? What would be your definition?
I would say along those same lines too. I don't think it's tied to money or what you accomplish or what you didn't accomplish, but along those lines too. Are you happy where you're at? Are you doing what you want to do? Maybe you've hit some goals that you've set. I think that could be a good measuring stick. But I think it boils down to if you feel like you're happy where you're at, it doesn't matter what outside influence has to say. It might matter a little bit, it might drive you, it might motivate you. But as long as you're happy doing what you do and you've surrounded yourself with the people that you love or that you've chosen to surround yourself with, and you're content. Because let's be honest, happiness, no one's going to be happy 100% of the time, but content and being in that state of contentness, that's realistic. I think if you're in that state more often than not, or a majority of the time, and there's a lot of content feelings of everything in life in general, I'd consider that a success.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. You know, success is finding what you want and go getting it. Uh,
Yes.
and not necessarily it can be a monetary value. If you want to be rich, if that's your goal, if that's what you want to be, then yeah, that's go do that. That'd be successful. If it's, you want to be the best teacher in the planet, then and you've done that, that's a success. So yeah, I think that's a very important definition, way of looking at, finding your success as far as that goes. Um, Dom, I'll ask you this. We a couple weeks ago when we did this, I said, what would you cover outside of NASCAR if you could choose something? You told me the political world. That really fascinated you, potentially being a political reporter. What if you had to choose a different sport? What would you want to cover within the sports world if you weren't covering NASCAR? And maybe it's a couple different sports, maybe not just one, but what would you want to do if you covered something else outside of NASCAR?
Great question. I think for me, it would be covering a team in the NFL or because I know you have 32 teams. It's going to be hard to cover every single angle of every team. But if you could maybe be the NFC North beat reporter or be the Packers reporter because I'm a Packers fan, that'd be pretty cool. I think covering a sports team like that, where you're traveling to the games, the away games, you're covering the home games, you're that season credential holder with the team, the players know who you are, the coaches, that sort of thing, where you're that staple, that presence in those press conferences, and you're covering every angle of the team. It would have to be professional football for me, Tyler. It'd be an honor to cover any team, not just the Packers. Any of those 32 teams would be a pleasure to go cover.
I'll say this, like one thing where I give NASCAR credit compared to the other sports I've covered, because like Dom has always been knee deep in NASCAR. I dabble in different things. My day job is in the NFL and college football. I do NASCAR stuff here. Do some college basketball. I'm actually going to be covering the Final Four next week as Jones goes west. But the thing about like the NASCAR world that makes it unique on the coverage side, there's so much more access than anywhere else. It's so limited in the NFL of how much you can talk to the players and, when you're going to see them and how much you can be on the field or in the locker room and all that. It's not as personable, right? And so that's what I would be intrigued. Like I believe, I'm a sport of yours. I think you could do a very good job covering the NFL, but I think it would be eye opening for you to see, wow, this is not NASCAR. This is a little more difficult here.
Absolutely. And like you said, knee deep in NASCAR. I would have said 10 years ago, same with the NFL. NASCAR and the NFL were neck and neck for me. And I think the focus of the racing experts, naturally, NASCAR just kind of did this and the NFL kind of fell to the wayside. But I still follow it. I still enjoy watching the game. I could sit there and watch all four quarters of a game and the year the pleasure I had to help be an assistant with the football team in my hometown at the high school level to see even at that level, Tyler, gave me such a deep appreciation for the sport. I learned so much. I'll be the first to tell you, I was the water boy of the coaches, man. I didn't really know a lot about the game, the X's and the O's, the watching film, breaking that down, like training yourself, watching film to not follow the ball, but to follow positions and follow formations. Very eye-opening experience. I would love that opportunity to cover the NFL someday if it presented itself.
Anything else for me?
Yeah, thinking here, like you said, we've gotten to know each other and we've gotten to meet some really cool people, but let's throw it back a little bit. So you're coming up on your 10-year reunion for high school here, not too far. You're closer to that than your graduation date. I had mine a couple years ago, so I'm curious, how many of your high school classmates, or even take it back further to middle school and elementary age kids and classmates that you had? I know you got to go to a few different schools. How many of those classmates do you stay in touch with, and how many of them would you consider friends to this day?
There's one in particular that I hang out with quite a bit that lives down here in Dallas, actually. And she and I have gotten very close. I'll leave it at that, but very, very good. A good friend of mine there. And just I think one thing beyond that, like a lot of for me, Dom, has been social media. Like I remember having this discussion when the yearbook people were around. My senior year, trying to sell us yearbooks, and my argument was like, why would I need to buy a yearbook when we got Facebook? And everybody, and they're like, well, Facebook's not going to be around forever. And my response was, well, where's it going? And like through social media, like, you and I, we travel a lot. We got places we go, things we do. And I mean, you just don't have time to see everybody. Even when I go back home, like, obviously I got to see my family first and foremost, but I just can't get to everybody. And so social media has been a big key, big thing. Like, I feel like distance isn't too far. Some of my high school friends, whatever, I feel like I know everything about them because I see everything they post on social media. We still interact, whatever, and exchange messages that way. So that's been a big thing for me. Is social media has felt like we're still close, even if I haven't seen each other in a couple of years. And then when we do see each other, it's like we time just we never left. So that for me is the big thing. Social media has really kind of made that go by quicker, make distance seem closer, if you will.
Sure, absolutely. And kind of relating to that too, maybe you feel the same way. Social media is a really cool thing, especially Facebook, where you see all these different things. You scroll, you see a high school classmate, you scroll, there's a colleague, maybe a former boss, maybe a former school-aged elementary friend, a family member, a distant cousin. You're going to see all these different posts from all these different walks of life. And you had the opportunity too to meet my best friend from high school, Marcus Lino. We met freshman year, and Tyler, you'd love this. Our friendship was forged day one pretty much by gambling. We showed up to our physical science class early, and again, different time, different place. They had the doors unlocked, so kids would just go in and we'd wait for our teachers to come. And Marcus would bring his deck of cards. We'd bring dollars, and we'd play just different card games until class started. So from pretty much at the beginning, our friendship was forged in gambling, and later turned to racing and golfing, and he's someone that you've had the pleasure of meeting a couple of times. He'll be with us at the Texas race in a few weeks. But really cool how sometimes you just meet people just by chance, and that would be my one class. There's a couple others I stay in touch with: John Church, Joel Levis, a few people I met throughout the high school, and St. Teresa, of course. You go to Catholic school, you have those small cohorts, you're going to be connected to those people forever. But Marcus Lino has to be that one constant for me.
Okay, here's my next question for you, Dom. Who
Yeah.
is somebody outside of the sports world, not just outside NASCAR, but outside the sports world? Who is somebody, a public figure, if you will, that you admire or you like, look up to, whatever, however you would define? Who's somebody outside of the sports world that public figure that you look up to?
And I cannot pick family, right? It's got to be somebody public
Yes,
figure.
public figure. Yes.
Public figure. Okay. Man, I got to get a lot of credit to his name's Tom Joles. He was the anchor at the NBC affiliate in Albuquerque, New Mexico for about 31, 32 years. He retired in 2017. But my first job out of college was working as an assignment editor at KOB TV. But I had known Mr. Joles, as I call him, prior to that, years before. And when I was still at UNM, he would let me come in and shadow. And I took a chance shooting an email. Hey, could I come in and shadow, or is there an opportunity just to come see what it's all about working in TV news? Absolutely. Reached out to me, and he said, hey, you come in these days. Went in a few times. And when a position opened up there, my name was the first name he threw out. And Tom Joel stars around your name. you're doing something all right, because that man has so much credibility. Even he's been removed from the industry now 5, 6 years. He lives up in Wisconsin. He's a big Packers fan like me. But yeah, we stay in touch. Definitely forever grateful for that, because I think taking that job, I learned a lot. You have some tough days, you have some good days, but you learn in a situation like that. You grow professionally, you grow personally, you learn what you like, you learn what you don't like. And I have him to thank for the trajectory of where life took me, because I'm not sure what would have happened. I mean, something else could have come up, no problem, no big deal. But Tyler, nobody was calling. Phone calls weren't coming in. The phone wasn't ringing. And Channel 4 came calling. And I worked there full time for a couple of years, stepped away for a while, and then they've rehired me. So I'll go in and fill in from time to time. But I'm very grateful to that man, Mr. Joels, for giving me that opportunity and throwing my name around, because he had clout. And again, forever grateful for that opportunity. How about you, Tyler?
So one guy that I look up to is Boris Sanchez. Works for CNN. He's one of their anchors during the daytime, CNN News Central. And Boris, here's how we connected. Many when I was in college, I attended this journalism conference, and he was working a booth for CNN, which I thought was funny. He was a well-known reporter at this time, and yet, like, he's still on booth duty. I thought me working radio remotes, I thought that day end. I didn't realize CNN anchors still had to work booths at conferences. Like that. That in itself was a shocker to me to begin with. And so give him credit for just being man in a booth, at a conference at that level. But here I was, a college student, and I met with him, and he looked over my resume, and he watched my demo reel, and as a dumb college kid, I had like this big typo. I can't even remember what it was, right on my resume. And he pointed out right away. And he's like, "What is this? Like, what are you doing trying to get a job, whatever? And you got a big typo in your resume." And I was like, "Yeah, you're not wrong. Good point. Thanks for catching that." And and he gave me some very uh, good critiques about my resume and my demo reel and everything. And so then what I did was, because I was meeting with other people showing my resume, once I got done with that meeting with him, I went right back to the computer, fixed the typo, and then I came back up to him and I said, "Hey, Boris, I just want to let you know I got this taken care of." And I showed him. He's like, "Great job." And then we hit it off from there. And he followed me on social media right away. And I said, "You sure you want to do that? You'll be seeing a lot of Kansas basketball updates that are not relevant to you as a newsman." He's like, "I see plenty of other stuff. It's fine." And we stayed good friends. And he came on my radio show and my podcast a couple different times, and still stay in touch to this day. And now he's a big anchor for CNN and everything. So I'm always appreciative of that. He took the time to invest in me like that, and to call me out, like, not just like, "Oh, this looks good, you're doing great," but to actually take the time to say, to be critical, to give constructive criticism. Always appreciate that. And so I know some people aren't big CNN fans, whatever. That's not the point of this. The point is about Boris. And I'll always be a Boris Sanchez fan. I don't care if he's working for CNN or Fox News or MSNBC, whatever. Like, just the fact that he took that time to help me out, and that we stayed friends ever since. I'll always be appreciative of him and want to see him succeed.
Never forget those moments. He invested in you. Joel's invested in me, and they saw something in us, and they knew that we could go on and do some pretty cool things. And we have. I think we've done some really awesome things. Like, I really truly believe that trajectory, working at that television news station, being immersed in news every single day. You know very well, Tyler. It's very, very much of an adrenaline rush. It's exciting. It's stressful. It can wear you down. That daily news war is a grind, but you learn a lot, and you learn how to compartmentalize. I can tell you too, I'm sure you feel the same way, where you work in a job like that, where especially you deal with breaking news, where you're dealing with so many things, you're juggling. You learn to compartmentalize. You learn how to figure, okay, this needs to get done first, then this, then this. You become more efficient with your time. News really teaches you those skills beyond working in journalism, like those good time management skills.
Definitely, definitely. So, Dom, before we go, what's going on? I got I got a lot going on, but you go ahead and tell us first. What's your next few days look like here?
Next few days, yeah, just kind of spend it here in Grants, and we're still trying to figure out what we're gonna be doing for Easter, but we'll have some good family time and spend that together. And yeah, it's gonna be nice to have a few relaxing days, and no matter where we spend that, it's gonna be a lot of fun. How about you?
All right, so I got to tell you all about Jones Goes West here.
Because the Summer of Jones got canceled, I'm only throwing that because David would have me say that. So there we go.
It did not get canceled.
Full disclosure.
It's been going on 8 or 9 years running, and we'll be back and better than ever in 2024. But Jones Goes West begins this weekend. When I get done with work on Friday, I will be taking a flight to San Diego, and I will be emceeing the Native Youth Foundation's fundraising dinner in San Diego there. And this is a great organization that's raising money to promote youth flag football, specifically girls flag football, which is really emerging and turning into one of the biggest youth sports out there. And several people are going to be there. Sean Merriman, the former Chargers linebacker, I'm doing a Q&A with him. And we got some great stuff lined up, some great entertainment and whatnot. So certainly excited to be a part of that and MC that event. And I'll stick around San Diego for a couple days, then going to go spend Easter in LA and see some friends up there real quick. And then I'm going to spend Easter after my quick visit to LA, driving from LA to Phoenix. I've been to both cities multiple times, but I've always been on airplanes, Dom. I haven't seen the countryside, if you will, of that drive. So this will be a first for me. Like I'm a big road trip guy. I'm excited just to make this drive from LA to Phoenix, 5.5, 6 hours, whatever it is. So we'll do that Easter Sunday. And then I'll get to Phoenix, and I got to MC another event. This is going to be a golf tournament for the NABI organization, the same ones that I call their high school basketball tournament every year in Phoenix. They're doing a big golf tournament fundraiser. I'm MCing that, Dom, but I'm also playing in this golf tournament too. So I got double duty. I got two hats to juggle. I got to make sure my golf game's on, which I haven't golfed since November, so that probably won't go well for me, but we'll have fun no matter what. And also MC this event. So that'll be a lot of fun. Have a couple days off to myself just to enjoy things in Phoenix. And then after that, working with TuneIn Radio, college basketball coast to coast. TJ Reeves, who's a friend of the show here, does some stuff behind the scenes with this show and the Studio Soapbox Network. Working with him, co-hosting Final Four coverage for TuneIn for the Final Four games on Saturday, and then also the national championship on Monday night. So certainly excited about that. Second year in a row working with TJ and for TuneIn covering the Final Four. Covered last year's in Houston and get to do this year's in Phoenix. So it's going to be a full week. Already got dinners planned out. Got to go to another event for the HBCUs. One night, a big dinner with them. Going to go catch some different sporting events besides just the Final Four. Going to go try to see a Diamondbacks baseball game. Going to a Suns basketball game. Might do a Coyotes hockey game as well. So it is going to be a fantastic trip on the West Coast. 11 days before I come home, and a lot of great sports too. Like you know me, I'm a sports guy, and besides just working it, like just to be a fan, enjoy myself. It's going to be an incredible trip here the next few days here, Dom.
Damn, you weren't kidding. That really was a mouthful, but that's a jam-packed schedule. I wouldn't have it any other way, I'm sure. And man, I'm happy for it. And by the way, you mentioned about the road trip. Never road tripped with you. We're gonna have to change that.
I can't believe we've never done that. I think the longest we've been in the car together might be like 30 minutes or something,
Yeah, your place to Kansas Speedway or your place to Texas Motor Speedway, not that much.
Your place to the mountains of New Mexico or something, yeah.
Oh yeah, we did a trip to the Bluffs, and then we did a trip to one of the casinos. I guess that was a 2-hour round trip drive. So I guess we have done baby road trips, but not like more than 4 hours in a car or anything.
Yeah. So we got to change that sometime.
We'll change that, yes.
Dom, we're out of time. Great show as always. Make sure to subscribe to Let's Go Racing. New episodes out each and every week. Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you listen to podcasts. Also on YouTube as well. Hit the like button, subscribe. We certainly would appreciate it. Follow us on social media, X at Starr Podcast, Facebook.com/Starr Podcast, and you can email us, davidstarrpodcast@gmail.com. For Dominic Aragon, David Starr, I am Tyler Jones. Put the checkered flag out on this edition of Let's Go Racing. We'll see you next week. So long, everybody.